Good evening, everyone. At this time, I'd like to call the Wilmington Board of Selectmen meeting of Monday, June 9 to order at 7:05. All members are present with the exception of Mr. Samaglier. I did receive direct word that he will not be able to attend tonight. I would like to move right into the transmitting of Treasury warrants 47, 47A, 48, and 48A. Do we have a motion?
Move the warrants, 47, 47A, 48, 48A.
Motion's been made, second's been made. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous. Moving right along to the approval of the minutes for April 14, 2014, and April 28, 2014. I'd like to take those up separately, as I was not in attendance for one of those meetings, and we still have a sufficient amount of people to vote on that. So we'll take them up as individually. Would anyone like to make a motion to approve the minutes of April 14, 2014?
Move to accept as written.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, we do have a second. Any discussion? All those in favor? 3, and I will abstain, please. Thank you. Moving on to the minutes for April 28th, 2014.
Move to approve the minutes as presented.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Moving along to our first appointment for 7 o'clock with Alpesh Kumar Patel from the Blue Tree Restaurant LLC, doing business as Subway 32622, with the request to obtain a common victual license for the property located at 285B Main Street. Do we have Mr. Patel in the audience? Could you please come forward and have a seat at the table, please?
This gentleman is here in his place.
Okay. Are you Ramnik?
Alpesh. That's Ramnik. He's Ramnik. My name is Alpesh.
Okay.
Yeah.
So if you can just state your full name for the record, and I take it you're not Mr. Patel, but you're representing Mr. Patel?
No, I'm the Mr. Patel.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
My name is Alpesh Kumar Patel. Anything else you want me to say?
If you could describe, sir, what your intentions are with the business this evening, that would be helpful.
Basically, right now it is the subway that is currently running. So I'm just purchasing the existing subway and gonna transfer to my name. So he's running subway right now and has all the license approved at this point. So we're just gonna continue transferring and running the subway as it is.
Okay, and it would be the same hours and same
Yes,
operation
same
as
hours
what's been
and
going
same
on?
operation, everything would be same.
Correct.
Yeah.
Do we have any approvals from the department heads?
Yes, the Health Director, Shelley Newhouse, has reviewed the application. If you recall, there was initially, she was awaiting the food application that's since been provided, and she is recommending approval of the common victualer's license.
Any questions or comments from any of the board members? Start over to my right.
Nothing.
Anything?
No, ma'am.
Anything? Okay. All right, if everything looks in order, would anyone like to make a motion to grant the request?
I make a motion that we grant the request relative to the common victual license.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Yes.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Good luck.
Thank you.
Moving along to our 7:05 appointment with Christina Stewart, our library director, with reference to the strategic planning and summer programs update. Welcome.
The town manager asked me to come this evening before you just to give you an update on the strategic planning process and give you a little bit of background on our summer reading program that's going to be starting soon. The strategic planning process was launched in January with the goal of developing a plan of service that will best meet the needs of Wilmington residents and determine what role the library could and should play in making Wilmington a great place to live. At the beginning of the year, I invited 13 community representatives to serve on the Strategic Planning Committee, and I was pleased that all agreed to serve. The members are Kendra Amaral, Assistant Town Manager, Steve Bjork, representing the Friends of the Library, Virginia Bonish from the School Committee, Jean Chang, the Arts Council, Diana DiGregorio from the Community Fund, Jonathan Eaton, Finance Committee, James LeMay, Library Trustee, Alan Landry, a retiree, Judy O'Connell, Board of Selectmen, Jo Marie O'Mahony from the Women of Wilmington, Kathleen Reynolds, Historical Commission, Ruju Trivedi, a teenager and a library page at the library, and Nancy Valley from the Chamber of Commerce. I serve as chair, and Charlotte Wood, Assistant Library Director, is serving as vice chair. We hired a planning director, Barbara Aleveris from Sage Consulting. Barbara has experience in developing strategic plans for nonprofits. She's also a Wilmington resident, and she's on the Friends Executive Board. She has expertly guided us through the planning process to date, and she's also facilitated our planning meetings and community focus groups. The first meeting of the Strategic Planning Committee was held on January 29th, and at this meeting, the committee developed community vision statements. Basically, we brainstormed on ideas for creating the ideal Wilmington. And at the second meeting on April 2nd, the committee reviewed these vision statements and selected those that they thought the library could best support and help Wilmington achieve. And of course, two of those top vision statements had to deal with education, and the other one was gathering places and cultural activities. During the month of March and April, we asked the residents for feedback about the library, its current services, and how we might improve our services or add new services. We held 3 focus groups, one with the teens, one with parents, and one with representatives from community organizations in town, and we held 2 community forums. So there was a total of 48 participants in all those meetings. We also did a survey and we received 346 responses. In addition, the trustees, Friends of the Library, Executive Board, and the staff did an internal analysis of the library, and using this analysis technique called a SWOT, where we identify the strengths, the weaknesses, opportunities, and threats of an organization to help us sort of do a self-analysis. And at the third meeting of the SPC, which was held last week, we presented a summary of the data, and we kind of analyzed all the feedback and came up with some key findings, which I'll share with you tonight. The feedback on the staff at the library was very positive. The staff is friendly, competent, and creative. The town believes that the library should play a critical role in formal education and supporting formal education and lifelong learning. Awareness. We found that even our regular library users are not aware of the scope of what the library offers. Technology. Our respondents appreciate all our technology offerings, but they really would like to see more technology training. Reading. The responses felt, the people who responded, that the library's core mission still is to promote reading, and they really considered this important role of the library in the community. Value to the community. Again, the respondents feel that the library does play a very important and unique role in community building by serving as a gathering space and through our programs, our services, and our partnerships. 89% of the respondents to the survey stated that the library is important to the town because it does support literacy and lifelong learning. Physical space. Most respondents believe the building is inadequate and needs some improvement. 44.5% feel the library does not meet the library's future needs. However, 55.5% feel that it does. At the last Strategic Planning Committee, we presented a draft of the goals and objectives for the committee's review. The next step is that staff and I will be working on tactics now to achieve these goals for fiscal year 16. The planning document will be submitted to the Strategic Planning Committee for their final review on August 6th. And then the draft will be given to the Board of Library Trustees for review and final approval at their September meeting. And then I will submit that plan to the Board of Library Commissioners by October 1. Having this plan on file at the Board of Library Commissioners keeps our library eligible for state and federal grants. So that's a little bit of a synopsis of where we're at and where we're going to be going. And I'll be giving the town manager a copy also of the planning document that he can share with the board. So I'll be happy to answer any questions about the process or anything related to it.
Thank you very much. That was an excellent overview, and having been a member on the committee, I've certainly heard a lot of this through the meeting. So I'd like to open it to my colleagues, and I'll comment at the end. And I'd like to start to my left with Mr. Shampoo. If you'd like to
Yeah.
ask any questions or make comments.
Not specific questions. I mean, I had the great fortune of being able to, being invited to participate in one of the focus groups representing the organizations. And what I found at the time in that meeting was that there was a wide and disparate perception of what the library is and should be. I kind of assumed that everyone in the room was going to have the same viewpoint that I would have generally, that it's a healthy, necessary component of the community on the whole. And that wasn't necessarily the case among some of the folks in the room. So a lot of good, I felt, a lot of good substantive conversation came out of that, and hopefully it became, you know, some of the stuff that you used in the analysis. I'm a proponent of the future of the library in some iteration, and I'm excited to see how this analysis will reveal what's next, what the tactics will be to build the library of the future, so to speak. I compliment you, and have done so in the past, and I'll do it again tonight, for getting a lot done with a little bit. You make tremendous use of the resources you have with the team, with the people, with the building. So thank you very much for continuing to do that. You know, I guess going forward, I will continue to be as close to this as you would like for me to be. I want to participate to the greatest extent possible, to be a contributing participant. So I wish you well. I don't have specific questions about the process, but I do indeed appreciate you engaging in the process as opposed to sort of letting the library continue to just sort of exist. I think we need to get out in front of it and determine what the community expects and wants of it. So thank you for that, and we'll look forward to the next steps.
Yeah, I do feel that the engaging the community in the process has been gratifying to hear the feedback, and to the committee. They're very engaged in it. As Judy, I think, will attest, it's been a process that I think has been healthy for us, but also the committee to see what the library can do.
May I ask, it just popped into my head as we were talking. I think it's easy to get a hold of and get the feedback from people who are frequent users of the library. But I would imagine that you'd want to get the feedback and opinions of those folks who aren't frequent users.
Yes,
and that's a catch-22, because how do you get them?
Well, we try to promote the online survey and make the survey available in hard copy at Town Hall, the Senior Center. However, I do think the majority of people who responded to the survey are users. And getting the feedback from non-users is challenging. So obviously, we would love to hear from them. I put the word out, please, let us know what you think. And I'm hoping, even as we go forward, that we will engage the non-users as well.
Well, hopefully this forum is a way for folks that might be watching to get re-engaged. And I imagine if they just go to the library's website, there's ways for them to communicate with you.
Absolutely.
Wonderful. Thank you again.
All right, thank you, Madam Chair. It was already been said, Bettina, you and your staff do an outstanding job at the library, understandable with the limited resources that you have. And obviously receiving literature, I do read it in the Selectmen's packet. You have wonderful adult programs, kids programs, so obviously it's a great asset to the community. And I know my son Chris really enjoys his library card. He shows that to me constantly with his other identifications. And I just wanted to say those things. And obviously, I know you're looking to expand down the road, so that's something that we may have to need to visit at one particular time or another. But once again, you do a great job. Your staff does an outstanding job, and a lot of programs, and I know they're worthwhile. And I look at it all the time, and you have authors coming to the
Yes,
there,
our
and
first author tomorrow night.
little recipes and all that sort of nice good things, and it's exciting. And I may not get to the library like I should, but I'm aware of what's going on, and I know it's an asset to the community.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, I think most of what I would offer has been said, although I just add the perspective and focus on a point that you made, and that's that the fundamental primary function of the library is to promote literacy for people of all ages, but certainly our younger people is of the utmost importance. And and I've just always believed that the services that you provide, certainly the manner of in which you deliver the services changes with technology, but the need to promote literacy is important. It doesn't matter what technological advances there are. So I continue to support the programs that you have and echo all the positive things that have already been said. Thank you.
Thank you. I just want to say it's been a real privilege to serve on the committee, and I really learned a lot through that process. I have to say, as a credit to you as their leader, I see the passion and enthusiasm that transcends throughout your entire staff, and I think that's a credit to you as a long-term leader at the library, so thank you for that. You can really tell that the people enjoy working for you and working with the people around you as a cohesive team. I think the points have been made in terms of the diverse programs that you offer, and I think it's important, obviously, for the state and federal grant money that the plan goes in place, and I'm happy to see as a town that the library's doing it, our open space plan's doing it for recreation, and that the town overall is really advancing their plan structure across all of our major pillars that we offer in the town. Also, too, I found it interesting through the survey that half the people thought that the library was adequate and half the people didn't. Yeah. And we talked about this at the last meeting, and it's more thinking of the library as not just a repository of books, but more as a place for community engagement. And I don't think everybody realizes that the best kept secret is the library with some of the diverse programs, whether it's literacy that my colleagues have talked about, but you also have, whether it's craft beer or a tarot card reading or, a story reading or a puppet show or, music. It's such a diverse offering there that I think there's a misconception that the internet just takes the place of what a library should be, and that's all it is. And it's really so much more. And we talked about, reinventing and revitalizing the infrastructure of what's already there, that you don't necessarily need a bigger footprint per se. You might need an addition, but it's more re-engineering what the infrastructure looks like. And do you want to make a couple of comments about that while you have the chance?
Yes, following up on what you're saying, I think people are using libraries much differently today than they were, say, 10, 20 years ago. And some people are still, certainly the perception is of the library of the 20th century, even though now we're in the 21st century. So libraries are reinventing themselves. And I think when we asked that question, does the current library meet the future needs of the community, it was about 50-50, because I think what is the future of the library is still being created, and I think what we need to do is still continue that discussion of what we can be for the community in some new ways that people may not have in the past perceived us to be. And obviously we're using our space differently. We have taken out stacks of books to create reading space, to create computer space. And what we're finding is people would like more gathering space, space for tutoring, spaces for small group meetings, spaces for private discussion, spaces for things like maker spaces where people are doing low-tech and high-tech creation in the library. So people are not talking about coming to the library for just information, but for inspiration, and creating spaces that can provide that kind of inspiration for people who are coming to make things. So another comment that we heard at one of our conferences is that the library is not just a place to store things. It's not. There's more things to do at the library than there are things being stored there. It's not just about things to do. It's about things to store. It's about places to do things. So again, that's just sort of the trend. We're in a transition now, and part of our challenge is sort of letting the public know, and that would include users and non-users, without really giving up our traditional role of literacy, because that's still our core, but also just expanding on it in different ways, because people learn in different ways. Some people learn through books, some people learn through show and tell. So it's just expanding that whole concept of information and how people learn. So I think that's just sort of following up on what you're saying, just redefining what we're doing without sort of, the core mission is still literacy and lifelong learning, but how that we achieve that is changing.
Understood. Thank you very much.
Do you want me to I just want just a little bit about the summer reading program before
Yes.
Again, we're doing our traditional summer reading program. I'll just say that our key goal, again, for the summer reading is to keep kids reading all summer long. We'd like to do this to prevent what's called the summer slide, a term that's used to describe that lapse in learning experienced by students over the summer when they tend to, drop off on the reading. So we like to keep them sort of reading for the fun of it through the summer. So I just would encourage, the best thing a parent can do is to encourage their kids to read during the summer, stop in the library, and sign up for summer reading. Last summer, Wilmington kids logged 5,332 books, and they beat the 3,000 book challenge. So we'd like to see them beat the 5,000 book challenge this coming summer, and they could sign up online or at the library. We have lots of incentives, and the staff has created a great lineup of programs, not only for kids, but as you mentioned, there's authors for adults and a great teen program coming up. And many of these programs are made possible by the Friends of the Library. So I guess it's time for me to do a shout out to, thank you to the Friends for all their generous support that make our wonderful programming possible. And they do a great job for us. So I just want to thank them for what they do. So in closing, I just invite all residents to stop by the library this summer, make it a part of their plans, and just say that there's something for everyone.
Thank you very much. Really appreciate it. Thank you. So moving on to our 7:20 appointment with George Hooper, the Public Building Superintendent, with reference to the building projects. Good evening, George.
Madam Chair, members of the board, Mr. Manager, how are we doing?
Very well, thank you.
So the manager asked me to come forward and speak about some of the projects that we do. As you know, as soon as June 18th hits and the schools are out, my department hits the ground running, trying to get these buildings clean and get them ready for the next school year. Some of the projects that we'll be working on, which are typical to them, we test all our fire alarm systems, check all our fire extinguishers, make sure everything is going, inspect service boilers, heating systems for all our schools and town buildings. It gives us an opportunity to get in and change all our filters on our univentilators and make sure everything in the classrooms are up to snuff. Things that you normally don't get an opportunity to do a real thorough job to get into. That's what we get to do over the summer. Some of the bigger projects that we have, we're going to be installing a new energy management system and controls over at the public safety building. This was passed at our town meeting. It gives us an opportunity. We get in there and this is going to replace the Windows 98 system that was in there on the old computer. The system that was in place was more of a time clock that would shut things off and control, but where we had a 24/7 building, a lot of these systems really don't need to be shut down. The new system going into place is a web-based system, so we can access it through the internet. We can actually see what the building's doing. We can check, make sure everything's functioning efficiently, make a few settings, change a few controls. We'll be able to bring in outside air, use the cooler air at night to cool the building off instead of using the chiller. So there's going to be a lot of things in place that we'll be doing for that new system. Also working with the National Grid, we brought a gas line over to the North Intermediate School, and we're going to put 2 new high-efficiency gas condensing boilers in over this summer. Part of that project is an abatement of about 700 feet of asbestos material that's going to be abated out as soon as the school is emptied. This will replace the 1962 oil-fired burners that have been in there. I mean, one thing that we do over the summertime is we do maintain and service all our boilers, so I would say we get our money's worth out of those. The new systems that are going into place, we're also going to have new controls in there, so when we get the rest of the building up to speed, we'll be able to install a web-based system similar to the public safety building where we can actually get online and see what's happening in the building. Over the summer break, we're also going to be replacing all the windows and exterior doors at the North Intermediate School. That's a big project that we've been working on through the MSBA, you guys are familiar with. That's going to start as soon as school gets out. We'll be moving forward. We have 8 to 10 weeks out during the summer break, but this is a big project, similar to what we did over at the Shawsheen School. This will be my 3rd window project that we move forward with, Shawsheen being one, the town library, and now the North Intermediate. As you can see aesthetically, I think that really improves the look of the building, also the energy efficiency, and the whole building envelope. These schools being some of our bigger assets, I think that it's a noticeable improvement. Also working with National Grid, we're looking to install a new gas line to the Shawsheen School over the summer at no cost to the town. So they'll bring this in, so when we want to do a future installation of gas boilers over there, we'll bring this forward at another town meeting for a capital improvement project, and we will go from number 2 heating fuel to gas. Public Buildings Department's also working with the Water Department. We're going to install a sewer line over at the North Intermediate School. which will eliminate the septic system that's there in place. So that, in conjunction with my department, that'll be done before the end of the summer. Over at the West Intermediate School, we're going to be replacing one of the forced hot water boilers, 1964. We're going to put in a dual fuel burner now for future hookup when I can work with National Grid on that building. We've connected a few of our buildings to natural gas. If you recall, we did the Butwell, we changed that over, the DPW. The new high school is going to be on natural gas. The Roman House is on natural gas, and the Public Safety Building. So more and more we can work towards these things, that more efficiency systems in place. We started painting the exterior of the bookstore next to the library. We're going to finish that up around June 23rd, get that completed. We're painting the exterior of the tavern, main house, week of July 14th. We're going to replace some trim boards, clapboards, and paint the exterior of the senior center. That's going from August 4th through the 14th. We'll be working on that. Some of the projects we're dealing with the school department. We're turning a assistant principal's office into a classroom and creating a new office in a different area of the school for the assistant principal. We're also working with the school department to move some equipment around, teaching supplies from school to school for their extended summer programs. Going to make ready the bathhouse, get ready for the summer when it finally shows up. We'll get that done. We'll help set up and break down for Beach Day. Some of the other things we have that we're helping out with will be the Relay for Life. We'll help with that, and some of the 4th of July activities. That's just touching upon some of the things that we'll do over our summer break. Like I said, as soon as school lets out, my guys hit the ground running, trying to get these buildings up and up to snuff and have them ready for the opening of a new school season.
Thank you. That's excellent. I'm going to turn it over to my colleagues to ask any questions and make any comments, but I certainly want to thank you very much for being here tonight and providing that. It certainly sounds like an exceptionally busy schedule, and I think any resident that's listening at home could certainly feel well assured that the town of Wilmington, through your leadership, is investing in our public buildings and certainly doing the town's part to take care of them in a consistent and persistent plan, short-term and long-term. So thank you for those efforts, and thank you to the residents at town meeting for seeing fit to appropriate those funds. So I'll turn it over to my right to Selectman Newhouse if you'd like to make any comments.
I really don't have any questions at this point. I appreciate not only the update, but the work that's being done in your department, and from yourself down to all the rank and file employees who keep plugging all summer as hard, if not harder, than they do during the school year. And I think it's the one comment I would make. It's an observation as much as anything. I think that the work that your department does and the work that is funded by town meeting for your department to do, anybody who listened, I think, would recognize that the lion's share of that is for the school buildings, and as well it should be. But I know that that's one of the issues that we talked about this previous spring when the school committee was searching for a new superintendent, and I think that the school committee demonstrated that cooperative spirit that we work with, and I think that in large part that's due to department heads and departments like yourself and the ladies and gentlemen that work for you, same as the police department. So really just see this as an opportunity to point out to folks a very concrete example of what we talked about in the spring, and that the school committee continues to talk about as well. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much. And once again, George, you always do a great job as superintendent. Like what Mike Newell said, I'll just echo a little more. I'm really glad to see these updates, because the people who foot the bill in the community actually get to see what's going on. And there are those individuals out there that say the town does not maintain their buildings or maintain the grounds. Absolutely nonsense. They do it all year long. But you're right, in the summertime you get to spend extra time actually to take care of a project. And I noticed you said this is your third window project. I see your wife in the audience. Does he do the windows at the house? She says no. Now you need to do the windows at the house. All right? So, but really, you do an outstanding job, and all those, the men and women who work for the for your department on the maintenance level do a great job, and it means a lot. When they go in and see a good school, clean, schools might be 30, 40 years old, they look really great, and it's really nice to see the update on the mechanics relative to the boilers, you know, so.
Thank you. It's definitely a team effort. I mean, my guys take a lot of pride in the building. When they get in, the first thing they want to see is a shiny floor. They get that building, you know, to shine, and they really do. And they do an outstanding job. They deserve a lot of the credit for that.
Good. I'm glad
They
to see
take
those
pride in
updates.
that.
It means a
you know.
lot. Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Yeah, we all remember that feeling of going back to school in September and the floor is nice and shiny and squeaky, and it's like, you guys did a great job. It's an ambitious list of projects. As you went down, I was starting to capture them, and then I gave up halfway through. A lot of them are. It's more than just shining up the floors. I mean, we talked about boilers and windows and technology projects, and like I say, the technology is kind of an interesting component of this. You're talking about Windows 98 versus whatever, you know, the software. And that's not probably typically what people would think of as the guy who manages our buildings and grounds. But that's a part of this overall process of managing these buildings. So certainly ambitious and appreciated. You mentioned a couple of things. I only have really two questions. One was about the efficiency, and I'm very happy that we have been investing and will continue to be investing in making our buildings as efficient as possible. I agree that replacing a 1962 boiler means we got a lot of bang for our buck out of those boilers. The other one was 64 and 62 of the years of those things?
Yeah.
That's pretty impressive. I mean,
We have quite a few of those, and we're going through and working with the support from you guys, the manager. We can go through and change these out. You know?
That's music to my ears. In the investments that we've made so far over the course of the last few years, and I don't want to hold your feet to the fire here, but are you starting to see any data or analysis or spending on oil or usage that is that we're starting to see some of those efficiencies paying back? Are we using less energy?
You do, you know, but that varies on different things. Weather is a tough one. I mean, this last winter, this was a killer.
Yeah.
You know, but you'll see the efficiencies and usage in the buildings go down, which is key for us.
That's what we need to see, right? And we all recognize that in every aspect of our lives, whether they be, you know, in our home lives or work lives, the cost of fuel isn't going down anytime soon. So the more efficient we can
That's
be, the
why
better.
we're doing some of these conversions. Also, you get more high efficiency through gas than you do oil.
Yeah.
And you know, it's the money that's spent on it. Yeah, so
It's an investment. Unrelated to what you've gone through, will there be preparations that you will start to make before the school year starts at the high school, or I should say at the old high school, if you will, in preparation for the move that will take place in February, or is that not yet something that's on your radar screen?
working with the school department on that. Of course, we have our weekly meetings, so we discuss all this. We're going through it. Yeah, that's all going to continue on through the summer. We have a high school building committee meeting that's going to be coming up also. So these are things that are starting to come to fruition now.
Evolve a little bit
Yeah.
more. Interesting.
you know,
The reason I asked is just it's another thing on your list of things to be considering.
That has just become part of the lifestyle right now.
Yeah, you're kind of used to that now.
Yeah,
right?
kind of used to it.
No, I appreciate the update, George, and I hope, like Mr. McCoy said, the residents, I think it's important for people that are out there sort of paying these bills, recognize that we're making these investments, and so thank you for updating us.
You bring up the new high school, which is going to be an exciting time. I mean, that's really coming this February 15. We're looking to open, so we're really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
You know, it's going to be something else.
Exciting.
Thank you. Are you all set?
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
I'd like to turn it over to the manager to make any comments he'd like to make at this time.
Yes, I did want to point out one item which this period of time between essentially the end of June and the end of August is really a window of opportunity of sorts for George's crew to get in and do the major maintenance, the major cleaning. One of the challenges that I suspect most folks aren't aware of is the fact that with the schools over the course of the last several years have begun to use the schools more and more during the summer, whether it's for special ed or the various programs that they run during the summer. This year, for example, the Woburn Street, the Wildwood, the middle school are all being used. The West for a period of time. The Recreation Department uses the Shawsheen School. So in spite of the fact that the department looks to that opportunity to get in and do the serious maintenance, it's really becoming compressed in terms of the available time that they have to get in and do that work, not to mention the fact that, like anybody else, the public building staff looks to take some amount of time off for vacations during the summer. So, George really has a juggling act of sorts to try to get all these key projects done in a very limited period of time, and I think it's getting more challenging. So, I think he does a tremendous job at getting the work done that we need to have taken care of.
Thank you. Once again, thank you very much for being here. We really appreciate the update. Have a good evening.
Thank you very much.
Okay, moving on to communications.
We have correspondence from John Moak, who is the town administrator in Pepperell. Essentially, this is with respect to a Tennessee Gas proposal. And he writes, I've been designated by the Town of Pepperell Board of Selectmen to correspond to you and your Board of Selectmen or Council regarding the formation of a Middlesex County coalition of municipalities in opposition to the Tennessee Gas Pipeline as it has been presented to the community and the private property owners. As is the case with the Town of Pepperell, you may have experienced similar expressions of opposition to this project from your community. The Pepperell Board of Selectmen have been investigating means in which to support the citizens' opposition to the proposed northeast extension of the Tennessee Gas Pipeline. The board is strongly committed to supporting the actions that will secure the property values of our residents and prevent the compromising of conservation land and natural resources which appear to be inevitable in this current proposal. The board feels the best way for communities to effectively oppose the proposed gas pipeline is to unite as a coalition to support the public interest in this matter. The board proposes to form a Middlesex coalition of municipalities to address this issue and asks that you confer with your elected boards or bodies to ascertain if your community would be interested in the formation of such a coalition. We believe the strength comes from a united group and would be pleased to work with your constituents on the issue impacting our municipalities. The formation or participation in such a coalition is not intended to replace specific efforts by the individual communities, but rather is intended to serve as a forum for the efficient and expeditious exchange of information and ideas, and to ensure that all communities are receiving and acting on a consistent set of facts and actions. The formation of such a coalition would have to take place in a relatively expedited period of time. It would be best to have the coalition formed by July 1, 2014. And it goes on from there. The towns that have been contacted are Ashby, Dracut, Dunstable, Groton, Tewksbury, Tingsboro, Lowell, North Reading, Pepperell, Reading, and Townsend. And they're looking to have some meetings coming up shortly after the beginning of the fiscal year. In terms of the town's response, I would suggest that the board defer any action on this at this time. I have been in touch with a representative from the Tennessee Gas looking to have them come to a Board of Selectmen's meeting to present their proposal. At this point, what they have done is to seek permission to do some very preliminary survey work of property, town property that is within their proposed route. And that's the extent of the work done to this point. I really believe that the town needs to get a better understanding of what their proposal is, the impact areas, before the board take any action. I'm looking to try to get them in for one of your meetings, either in July or August. So at this point, I would at least suggest that the board defer any action until the meeting of the 23rd of June. In the meantime, perhaps I can obtain some additional information.
Are you looking for some feedback on that from the board at this time?
Certainly, if the board has any thoughts, yeah, I would appreciate hearing from the board.
Does anyone have any comments that they want to offer at this time towards that?
Just an observation. This is tough. second paragraph says, Pepperell Board of Selectmen have been investigating the means in which to support the citizen opposition to the proposed northeast extension of the Tennessee gas pipeline. So they've come right out and said they're opposed to it and they want to support that opposition. I'm not in favor of a Tennessee gas pipeline extension, but I don't feel like I'm opposed to it yet either. As Jeff Hull just said, I don't feel like I have enough information. I know in a packet from a couple of weeks ago, there was a copy of the presentation, probably similar presentation that we will receive when Tennessee comes and talks to us. But I don't feel like I have gathered enough information to make an educated decision or render an opinion about whether this pipeline extension is positive or negative. I will say it's kind of ironic that we sat here a moment ago listening to Mr. Hooper talk about the transition of oil boilers to natural gas boilers that depend on natural gas, clean natural gas, that's more efficient. And this is talking about natural gas. So, I don't know. These are never easy discussions to have or decisions to make, but I certainly feel that Mr. Hull's recommendation that we defer this at least for the next couple of weeks makes sense, and in hopes that we can get the Tennessee gas pipeline folks to come in and tell us what their plans are.
Anything?
I'm good.
Anything? I'd certainly be in favor of deferring. Would we be sending a letter to them just to acknowledge receipt of that and that,
Yes.
so that we're at least giving them an update in line with their deadline? Thank you.
There's correspondence from James Buckley and Tom Pizzara. The correspondence is directed to the Yentile Farm Committee. It reads in part, a group of us have been playing the game pickleball at St. Thomas's Community Hall for well over a year, thanks to Father Early at St. Thomas's. Our group consists of Tom Pizzara, James Buckley, Bill Kane, Bob DePalmer, and several other Wilmington residents. He goes on to talk about the popularity of this particular sport. I guess it's a sport that is similar in some respects to tennis. Apparently is capturing the age group between 34 and 72. Talks about some of the other communities that have been involved in promoting this or providing access: Malden, Reading, Andover, Lexington, and Burlington, to name a few. And essentially he's advocating for pickleball to be located at the Yentile Farm proposed recreation area. He does note in here, and this was done, I would point out very quickly, in response to this group's desire to have access to an area for pickleball. In working with the Public Works Director, we set up courts behind the Wildwood School. He notes in here that it's only available 2 months out of the year. In fact, they would have access to the area after school is done for the day. And one of the concerns that the superintendent had was having folks in that area during the time that school is in session. But certainly they would have access to it in times other than July and August. But
So may I ask a question on that, Jeff, please? May I, Judy?
Yes,
Thank you.
sure.
In that last paragraph, they say, the courts at Wildwood School have been designated to us, can only be utilized for 2 months a year due to after-school programs. So I inferred from that there were events or activities that the school or that the school department was using on those courts after 2 o'clock, hypothetically. Is that not the case?
I don't believe that's the case. I can certainly confirm that, but my understanding is that once school is done, and there may on certain dates be activities in the school after the formal school day is done, but I don't believe that to be the case on a regular basis.
The only thing that would come to mind would be the CARES program,
Right.
which is before and after school. I don't know if they sometimes let them out in that area, as part of the programmatic design, but I don't know that to be the case.
That's something we'll certainly look at.
Did you have something else?
Well, just for whatever it's worth, I know these gentlemen have been active participants in the Yentile committee that you chair, Judy. So they're also active contributing people around town, and they go on to say the size of the court is 20 by 44. Whether it be at Yentile or some other place, I know that we have made an arrangement, or at least attempted to accommodate the request at Wildwood. I just, I would hope that the town, and I'm confident the town will find a way to accommodate a request that would be acceptable to them. I hope we can keep looking for a reasonable solution to please everybody.
One comment I just want to make on that, and I hear you loud and clear, is the fact that no final plans have been made for Yentile, which we've talked about. But the other thing is that Yentile isn't even going to have groundbreaking until after the next town meeting. So I would say that this was intended to be a long-term solution, but it was also intended to be an immediate solution for them that they could start playing now versus having to wait for Yentile to come to fruition. So I understand the spirit and intention of what their letter is, but I feel, I'm not speaking for Jeff, but I feel that the town overall is trying to work with them.
Indeed. And ditto. I appreciate the clarification on that, and I think it's important to make, so thank you.
Thank you.
Continuing with correspondence from Jane Lyman from Xfinity, writing to inform the board that effective August 1, 2014, due to increased operational costs, the field collection charge for collection of past due balances or unreturned equipment will increase from $20 to $25 per occurrence. The board has correspondence from Jean Chang, co-chair of the Wilmington Arts Council. She's recommending an individual to serve on the council. The Wilmington Cultural Council currently has 5 active members and 2 non-voting advisory board members. Louise Anderson is our newest active member and has already contributed her expertise and help to the council in many ways. We are happy to have her as a member. We recently found an artist, longtime Wilmington resident, who is enthusiastically willing and able to serve as a member and would be an excellent fit in all respects. It is so important that all potential members are a good fit, both in terms of relating to the council and the general public, but also committed to offering the talent and ideas to make the council better able to serve the town and enrich Wilmington's culture. Ruth Camber is not only an accomplished artist, but a warm, intelligent person who the Arts Council would be fortunate to have as a member. Ruth is active in other art councils and is very familiar with the needs of the council regarding the grant cycle. We therefore formally request that Ruth Camber be approved as a member of the Wilmington Cultural Council. So the board would be asked to consider taking a vote to appoint her.
I'd make a motion as described by the town manager to appoint the individual.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second?
Motion's been made and second. Anything further? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
We have correspondence from Kristen Stokes. This is similar to prior responses made over the last few years, writing seeking approval for a street closure for their annual Jacob Street block party. I would like to block off Jacob Street at both Cunningham Street and Faulkner for the duration of the party. It will be on Saturday, June 21st, 2014, from 2 p.m. until 8 p.m. We've done this for the past 5 or 6 years without any issues. In the past, the DPW has dropped off roadblocks for us to use, which has worked very well. She will inform both the police and fire of these dates before or the morning of, and is making that request.
Okay, any questions or comments from the board?
Move to grant the request for the block party as outlined.
I'll
Motion's
second
been
it.
made and seconded. Any further discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you.
Under board to consider, there is a request to sign off on the easement right of access for Eleanor Drive. If you recall, the Eleanor Drive was accepted as a public way at the town meeting on May 3rd. This request would complete the process. I would ask that the board defer action on this only because in reviewing the documents, there are a couple of questions that came up, and I want to just be clear that the documents reflect the accurate information that we need to have on them.
Okay. So at this time, would anyone like to make a motion to table this board to consider item?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. All those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
Also looking for the board to consider adoption of Chapter 40, Section 4J, which is the establishment of a mutual aid agreement. This is something that is done through the Massachusetts Emergency Management Administration, which is the so-called MEMA. A number of communities throughout the Commonwealth have signed on to this agreement. There's actually two separate agreements that can be adopted. Let me just, for your information, distribute the document here that I'm passing out reflects the communities in the state that have already signed on to either one or both. Chapter 40, Section 4J or 4K. In this case, 4J, which is what I'm recommending this evening, is for public safety events, whether it's some kind of a natural disaster event or other type of emergency. Essentially what this does, by adopting this provision of law and authorizing the sign-off on the agreement, we would be able to access resources anywhere in the Commonwealth from those communities who have also entered into this agreement, whether those resources might be personnel or equipment. In turn, we would also have the opportunity to provide such resources. It doesn't compel us on a particular event to provide resources. If, for example, it was some kind of a storm event and we were had our hands full, so to speak, in terms of providing snow removal or whatever the operation might be, if we were not able to provide the resources at that time, we wouldn't be obligated to do so. But if we were not using particular resources, we could provide them. The other point I would make is that the operating system that is used is the emergency command system. So in a given community, just for sake of argument, the town of Amesbury needed resources. Their command structure would have overall control of the operation, but if we were to send, whether it would be public works vehicles or other equipment, our personnel would still maintain control of those resources, so we wouldn't be giving them up to another community. You know, I've looked at this, talked to the police chief about it, and we don't see any, certainly any downside to this, and it, I think, creates advantages, essentially a measure of insurance, if you will, if there was some need for us in the future to draw upon resources outside of Wilmington.
Okay.
So if, what I would be looking for, and certainly if there's any discussion, what I'd be looking for is a motion that would authorize me in my capacity as town manager on behalf of the Board of Selectmen to enter into a mutual aid agreement with the Commonwealth of Mass by adopting Mass General Law, Chapter 40, Section 4J, for the purpose of a public safety mutual aid.
Would anyone like to make a motion as read by the town manager?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
Motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion?
Oh, no, I thought you were...
Discussion
I'm
briefly
sorry.
is only that there's no cost, there's no subscription cost for this. Is that correct?
There is no subscription cost. Essentially, in the event that we were to send resources to another community, we would be responsible for the cost associated with that unless there was some other agreement reached with that recipient community. Or vice versa, if we were to call upon resources from another community, they would be responsible for that cost unless there was some other agreement.
Which it seems like you stated here, which is really a formalization of a process we kind of have in place informally today.
Yes.
And this 4J is just for public safety. Is there another provision for DPW that would?
Yes, DPW is Chapter 40, Section 4K. The distinction there, at least one of the distinctions, is that would allow for day-to-day mutual aid, if you will, whereas this is more relegated to that event that comes up that you have to respond to. The reason that I haven't requested the board consider 4K is that I have not fully discussed that with Mike Woods, the Public Works Director, and I want to make sure he's comfortable before we move forward on that.
Thank you.
Selectman McCoy, do you have anything?
No, I'm fine.
Okay.
Thank
Selectman
you.
Newhouse?
Yeah, I just think this is one of those items that I rely heavily on the town manager, and in this case, the chief of police, and if it makes sense, I don't feel like I know a lot of information about this, but I think this is exactly the kind of thing that we entrust, the opinion in our management folks, and in a world that's changed so much, and that so much of the threats to public safety aren't isolated to one small geographic area. I guess just intuitively it makes sense to me. So I just felt as though I wanted to throw that on the table, that I think this is one we rely heavily on our administrative folks.
Madam Chair, I would point out that in talking with one of the representatives from MEMA, there's approximately 275 communities that are involved in a party to one or the other of these agreements, either 4K or 4J. None of them have opted out, although there is an ability to opt out at any time, providing them particular notice. I believe it's 30 days notice or thereabouts, and then within 10 days of receipt of that notice, you can opt out. So if for whatever reason we determined that it wasn't to the town's best interest, I'd be back recommending we opt out.
Okay. All right. I have nothing further. At this point, we've had a motion on the table, and we have a second. So all those in favor? Unanimous. Thank you.
The next item under board to consider is the approval and execution of the town council agreement. You will recall that the board has an annual agreement with Deutsch Williams, Brooks, Durensis, and Holland for provision of legal services. This contract runs from June 1st to June 30th, and the amount of the contract is $25,000 per month, and then any reimbursables. So the money was approved at town meeting. Funding comes through the general revenue as well as from the water fund. So I would recommend that the board vote to adopt this contract and execute it.
Madam Chair, just to make a quick comment. Everything that the town manager said is correct. I know at the time myself and Selectman Shampoo with the manager sat down with town council, and we're all on the same page, and I thought we did bring an agreement to the table. I think that's an advantage to the community, and all parties are happy, and I don't have a hesitation to recommend approval of this and to sign it.
Okay, I'll take that as a motion. Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, motion's been made and seconded. Any discussion? All those in favor? Unanimous? Thank you. Anything further?
No further items under board to consider, no.
Okay, at this time, public comments? Yes, if you can please identify yourself and state your property address as well, for the record, please.
My name is Lauren Callahan, and we're at 95 Clark Street. Sure. We're here today. Our house is directly adjacent to the safety building that operates fire, ambulance, police. And we're here today to voice our concern about the noise the building cooling system gives off. Sorry,
I'm sorry, what
the noise that the AC unit gives off.
Okay.
While we appreciate the help of Jeffrey Hull and George Hooper, who was up here earlier, in answering our questions about the AC unit, even visiting our house, Jeffrey actually came over and sat out on our deck. We are still concerned with the noise that the AC unit gives off. It affects our daily use of our home. Our windows, we keep them closed at night because the noise comes right into our bedroom window. And it does limit the use of our deck, our backyard. We can hear it. It's very, very pronounced. We've been talking about this for a while now. We started initiating conversations the spring of 2012. And we're here because we're anxious to hear about further plans on how the town hopefully plans to fix the noise. I know we've heard about a couple of solutions. There was an engineering firm that was hired, but we're looking for something that's a little bit more permanent of a solution. And I think it does go without saying that we're looking for a solution for both parties. So we know that the AC unit needs to work, needs to work well. Obviously that goes without saying, but we're looking for some help, in terms of the noise that it does give off. So that's really it.
Thank you. I appreciate those comments. I would like to ask the manager if you'd like to make any sort of response to that.
Sure. We did have a number of conversations, email communications. Shelley Newhouse, the health director, did go out and did the sampling for the noise, and it is below the DEP limitation for noise, which is 10 decibels. The readings that we got, that Shelley actually picked up, I believe, were in the range of 6 or 7. We hired a consultant to go through a similar process, and their readings ranged from 4 to 6. So it is below any state requirement for noise issues. That being said, I did go out, as did George and Shelley, and when it comes on, you can hear it. There's no question that there is a measure of noise there. I think one of the things that will be helpful, and we'll have to see let this play out in terms of the system that George talked about this evening, that better regulates the controls within the public safety building. One of the intents, as George noted this evening, is by circulating air, bringing fresh air in from the outside. The expectation is that the chiller unit will have to run less frequently. So if that's the case, then it should reduce the amount of noise. The other thing that he's planning to do, and this is a purchase that will have to be made in the new fiscal year, July 1, is purchasing these essentially a wrap, if you will, that will go around the chiller unit to try to muffle the noise. These are things that that is an item that is on the purchase list and will be done. So, we are going to take these steps to see to what degree they will lessen the noise. It's in some measure a bit of trial and error here. I can't necessarily guarantee that any one thing is going to eliminate the noise. I suspect we just can't physically eliminate all the noise, but we certainly are going to try to reduce the amount of noise.
So hearing your comments and hearing with the manager, it sounds like there's an action plan to try and rectify those issues. Certainly, it's not tonight or tomorrow that would happen, but it's in the near future. So that being the case, I want to thank you for being here. We're not going to have a permanent solution at this meeting, so I don't want to be disingenuous and tell you that. But what I would say is that keep the lines of communication open with the manager's office. If I could kindly ask that you give the town the opportunity to follow through on what the manager has stated. And certainly, there's an open door policy with the town hall that you certainly can re-engage the town. Does that sound like a reasonable action plan for this evening?
Yeah, it definitely does.
Okay, thank you. Anything further? Thank you very much. Any other public comments? Okay, hearing none, we'll move into important dates. Thank you.
On important dates, tomorrow evening is the Olin Public Information Meeting. This is at the Wilmington Middle School Auditorium, 7 p.m. This is being essentially run by the EPA and will provide an update on more recent events related to the Olin efforts to remediate the site. Rotary Trivia Night is scheduled for June 13th at the Shriners Auditorium, 7 p.m. June 14th, beach opens, so we will have lifeguards at the beach from June 14th through August 17th. June 15th is the Farmers Market, Town Common Parking Lot, 10:30 a.m. to 1:30 p.m. June 16th is the Flag Retirement Ceremony, Minuteman Headquarters. June 20th and 21st is the Wilmington Relay for Life. That'll be over at the middle school, starts around 5 o'clock or thereabouts and continues through 5:30 the following morning. Very important, important event to raise awareness about the battle to find a cure for cancer. The June 22nd is the Council for the Arts 34th Annual Art Exhibit. June 23rd is the next Board of Selectmen's meeting here in Room 9, 7 p.m. June 24th, the High School Building Committee, Town Hall, Room 9, 6:30. July 8th is the next Yentile Farm Development Committee meeting in the auditorium at 6 p.m. And then on July 23rd is the next Yentile Farm Workshop at the Wilmington Middle School cafeteria at 6 p.m.
Thank you. And I inadvertently skipped over new business and committee reports, so at this time I'd like to turn it over to Selectman Shampoo to start. Anything this evening?
Yeah, real briefly, I again had the opportunity to engage with the Scouts of PAC 56, which I continue to relish the opportunity to do that. They, as part of their pursuit of various merit badges, they need to engage in conversation and discussion with an elected official, and so I've had the great pleasure of joining them, so my compliments and my shout-outs to my friends from PAC 56. Also want to, I'm saying PAC, I think I'm supposed to be saying Troop. I should probably have corrected that, sorry, Troop 56, sorry, gentlemen. And lastly, in my capacity that you appointed me to as the liaison to the Historical Commission, I am missing their first meeting right now. Their meeting coincides with ours, so I have planned over the course of the next 48 hours or so to sit down or at least have a live one-to-one conversation with their chairperson, Kathleen Black, to review the discussion points from today, and I'll have a report to make to you at our next meeting.
Thank you. Selectman McCoy?
I'm good, Madam Chair. Thank you.
Selectman Newhouse?
All set.
The only thing I would just add is that the Yentile Farm Development Committee survey is out on the main website for the town, and we're taking responses through the end of June, I believe June 22nd. So if you haven't had an opportunity to get out there and fill out the survey, it only takes about 5 minutes. We're approaching past the 500-person response rate, and we're looking to get that number to increase. So thank you to people in advance for your participation. And that will bring it to a close. Would anyone like to make a motion for this meeting to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion's been made. Do we have a second?
Second.
All those in favor? Unanimous. Aye. Good night. Thank you.